Good Monday morning. Welcome to Squawk on the Street. I'm Sarah Eisen with Carl Quintanilla and David Faber, live as always from Post 9 of the New York Stock Exchange. Do have some breaking news to begin the hour for you around the DOJ's investigation into Fed Chair Powell. I did just speak with the former Federal Reserve Chair and former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen about all of this, and she did not hold back. Here's what she told me. As far as the investigation, she did tell me that it was very chilling for Federal Reserve independence. She clearly thinks that this is political on the part of the administration when it comes to investigating Fed Chair Powell. We talked about, here's the quote, "I find it extremely chilling for Fed independent." So we talked about how it appears to be that they're looking into some testimony from Fed Chair Powell before Senate banking about the building, about everything with the cost overruns and how much the building cost and everything. So here's what the former Fed Chair Yellen did tell me. She said, "Knowing Powell as well as I do, the odds that he would have lied are zero. So I do believe they are going after him because they want his seat and they want him gone." She did say, as far as the market reaction, I'm surprised that the market isn't concerned. It seems to me that the market should be more concerned. I talked about some of the market reaction. Yes, we're seeing a bid for gold. Yes, the dollar's a little bit weaker, but she thinks this is a real cause for concern here. And then we talked a little bit more, guys, about other ways she's concerned about Fed independence. She's really eagerly waiting to see what the Supreme Court decides on Lisa Cook, for instance. And she also referenced this notion from the president that he has said about how the Fed should be cutting rates to lower payments for the federal government. And here was the exact quote from former Fed Chair Yellen. "You have a president that says the Fed should be cutting rates to lower payments on the federal debt." She completely disagrees with that and says it is the road to a banana republic. She also cited with me in the conversation examples like Argentina in the past, Turkey in the past, Venezuela, where the federal government, basically because of mismanagement and bad fiscal policy, has to rely on the central bank to monetize the debt, and then you get hyperinflation. So that was in the discussion of why central bank independence is so important. And then finally, on the Tillis statement, she said the Senator Tillis statement, where he said that he would oppose any other nominations from this administration until this was dealt with. She was encouraged to see the Tillis statement, she said, because the fact that he was willing to do so publicly, she said, is a strong statement. And then continued to talk about how, and her word was weaponized, how she thinks that the administration is weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after people that they disagree with, and how that is going to end up hurting people's ability, especially at the Fed, to disagree with the president.
Yeah, Tillis, of course, not running for re-election, but he is a key Republican on Senate banking. You saw the prediction market odds of Powell staying on the committee even after he leaves as chair, and which was reiterated by a couple of notes. Evercore said they could see him staying, and that would actually be work against the administration's goals of achieving lower rates.
Right. And clearly the administration, I think, wants his seat. So maybe, I mean, who knows if this is behind this? I think that's something that Janet Yellen would probably speculate. And in our conversation, what she said is, Fed Chair Powell's been at the Fed for a really long time, a better part of 14 years, and wouldn't be surprised to actually see him maybe want to leave before this, because he's put in his work as a public servant. He's done a lot. He's been through the COVID crisis, the inflation spike. But now I think there are questions about, he was pretty defiant in that video message last night, and whether he would continue to serve as on the board as governor, because now the question is about an independent central bank and not having the president get a majority because of this threat.
Right,
of a criminal
and this is
investigation.
A threat we should point out, it's not just the idea in particular of this case that may be brought criminally to prosecute the Fed chair. Were he to be found guilty, by the way, conceivably would end up in jail. It is, Sarah, I think the idea that this will hang over every Fed chair who follows.
Correct. That's part of the problem. I talked to Yellen about some of the nominees, and she said she didn't want to comment on anyone in particular, but just hopes that whoever gets the nomination, would put a strong stand for Federal Reserve independence. But clearly this makes, as she said, it harder to buy into the credibility of whoever will be the next Fed chair, because the president has already said that he wants him to agree with him on monetary policy and is now threatening this criminal indictment on or investigation
Sarah,
on the Fed chair.
You spent a good amount of time with Powell. I don't, obviously we know him as a fierce defender of Fed independence. Do you think that argument that he might choose to stay is one that is logical?
Sure. I mean, because I think that I think he values Fed independence. I think it's why he chose to come out and make a video statement yesterday, which was very unusual.
Very much so.
And you've sensed in his tone the defiance. I think that was there. He has been sort of verbally harassed and harangued by the president for lower interest rates for a long time now, and now taking it up a notch to get the DOJ to investigate. Now, the president would say, I have nothing to do with this. You know, we should report that. But the president has said, I have nothing to do with this. However, I think the administration is playing with fire. This is just to review what this is all about in terms of the building and the cost overruns, a budget that was approved by all the Fed Board of Governors every single year. The administration has no oversight on the Federal Reserve and what it does, what its funds and its building. That is up to Congress and the Senate Banking Committee, which has raised no concerns and no problems. So the legality of this is difficult, and that's why I think that we're talking about Fed independence and what is really at stake here.